Good morning and welcome to Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. The 4 finalists for the Heisman were named yesterday. All QBs: USC's Caleb Williams, Georgia's Stetson Bennett, TCU's Max Duggan, and Ohio State's C.J. Stroud. Keep in mind, former QBs who have won this award include Jameis Winston, Johnny Manziel, and the one and only Baker Mayfield. So, Dave, is it a crown or a curse to win the Heisman as a QB?
Well, it's a little bit of both because Lamar Jackson, 2016, was the Heisman winner, won an NFL MVP, which, by the way, if Caleb Williams wins the Heisman Trophy because he's the presumptive favorite right now, he would be the first QB since 2016 Lamar Jackson to win with their team not being in the Final Four of the college football playoff. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but this is something we've talked about a lot, Chad. You and I were intently covering the Tim Tebow draft era. He was a great college football
guy
player
that won it. Yes, a good example.
This was a great college football player. We both knew he could not hit the broadside of the fucking barn in the NFL. There was just no way he was ever going to be good. So I separate the two. A great college quarterback really and truly has nothing to do with how good you're going to be in the NFL. It really doesn't. Brock Purdy might turn out to be as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was almost non-drafted. So winning the Heisman, is it a curse or is it a crown? It's a mixed bag, man.
When we look at the list of quarterbacks, there's only one quarterback that really stands out that really became what you would think a Heisman quarterback would end up becoming. That's Roger Staubach, who won it in 1963. Obviously a Hall of Fame quarterback, maybe one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Another guy that won it, Joe Burrow in 2019, and Jim Plunkett in 1970. But when you look at Vinny Testaverde and Doug Flutie and, some of these other guys, Jason White, Danny Warfel, you start naming the list of quarterbacks, and there's less Hall of Famers than you would think. Now, when the other positions, running back, wide receiver, some of those other positions, you have bigger names that made a bit bigger impact in the NFL, but there are some names on there as well that didn't do as good as they'd hoped in the NFL. So it's not necessarily a crown. It is kind of a curse to a degree in some cases.
Well, it's almost like being the Madden cover athlete, right? Like there's anecdotal evidence to suggest that you get yourself on the cover of Madden and you're about 75% likelihood of falling off the face of the earth, unless your name is Tom Brady. That's the only guy, Chad, and we were talking about narratives off camera, off mic this morning. Tom Brady is one of those guys that seems to eschew all of these things, right? He wasn't a lauded college football quarterback, 6th round draft pick. Of course, we know what his career turned out to be. And last night, Tom Brady orchestrated another come from behind victory in the fourth quarter. It took Tom Brady 45 years to pass Peyton Manning, but he got there because Peyton Manning had the record of 43 fourth quarter comebacks. Brady last night notched his 44th. But yeah, it's a mixed bag. And I know that Neil Duda is talking about the fact that they are curses as opposed to crowns. There is an argument to be made, but this is, again, the separation to me between college football and NFL football. The NBA and college basketball have been a lot more of a close facsimile of each other. If you saw somebody that was great in college basketball, the chances are that they would be at least pretty good in the NBA, right? I mean, that's not always, but the chances are if you were great in college basketball, you had a pretty good chance to be good, at least in the NBA. That is not the same for the NFL. That is a completely different animal altogether. So to your question, dude, I don't know. It's starting to feel like maybe it's more of a curse, except for Vinny Testaverde. Like, this guy actually rode off into the sunset with all of the Jameson and all of the beer that he could drink, which was still left over from the Heisman committee. Like, they gave this guy, I think it was first a couple of racks of like Pabst, and then it just kind of continued through his whole career. Vinny Testaverde, he might not have been a Hall of Fame quarterback, but a Hall of Fame drinker. That's for sure.
And a tight spiral. The guy threw a nice tight spiral, which is apparently really important when you're throwing interceptions to make sure it looks pretty. Joey Miller asks, is Deion Sanders building a super team in Colorado? Well, initially we reported, because initially we heard that he was denying that job, did not want it. And then obviously now he's accepted that job. And I think that's a good move for him. I think it's a good move for the school. I think he's done great things down in Jackson State. So who knows? I think he's going to be able to recruit. Deion, if prime time comes into your living room, how are you going to say no to that?
If you're one of the athletes on the West Coast, this is going to be a hard thing to say no to. And this is where Deion, I thought, was maybe going to be up against it at Colorado, because if you're in Colorado, especially with the Buffaloes, you've got to recruit Texas, Arizona, California. Like, you have to get players from that area. I thought that Deion's tie to the South was going to be more of his recruiting pipeline.
Right.
But to your point, Deion comes into your living room. How do you say no? And let's not forget this, the NIL deals that exist now. And Colorado, I mean, you could get a guy that, let's just say there's a huge dispensary, and they're like, we'll pony up $2 million to go get this quarterback, so long as he takes a picture on his Instagram feed with our brand of Maui Wowie.
So Ricky Williams' kid would be a good possible recruit.
Absolutely. Dude, Ricky Williams is trying to get back into college right now. What are you talking about? Ricky Williams is dude, I want back in right now. He's trying to be like what Joe DeGuano mentioned yesterday, Scott Bakula, come in when he's about 80 and continue his career. Listen, I don't know, Joey, because there's going to be some work to be done. Colorado is not a program that's in great shape, right? They're really not. There's a lot of different things, and I was watching some stuff. John Denton and I actually talked about this program a few months back. There's a lot of things that Colorado probably has to do to get themselves into a position to really be considered one of those contenders. But we talked about it with Lincoln Riley at USC, Chad. You bring one of these big-time coaches into a program that, let's be fair, has had historical problems, or at least over the last 2 decades, that can change on a dime because of the coach, because of NIL. Guys and gals, stay tuned. We got a lot to cover this morning. The Bucs, they narrowly defeated the Magic last night. However, I did give you a winning play. Matt Janus, UWL head football coach, will be joining us coming up at 8:30. And this morning's poll question, which is on our Twitter feed and our Facebook group page, is asking you, which of these aged QBs is going to retire first? Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, or Matt Stafford? Stay tuned. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hey, it's time for koozies, hot tubs, and jacuzzis. With a big announcement for the next 2 months. When you buy a hot tub or jacuzzi, you get a pair of tickets for the Big Coozes Booze Cruise. Headed to Cabo. So sop that mop and then come pop a top with me, the Coos.
Sop that mop is a slang term for wet bush.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios, this is the one and only Sports Carnival, where we believe it's better to be a smartass than a dumbass, and we practice that. Now here's your host, Dave Coney.
And apparently, Chad, my powers of both vocabulary and assholery are starting to take root here in the Cooley region. I went 3 places this weekend. They're like, dude, Chad was right. You're an asshole. And I said, well, I'm also a smartass, so there is that too. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, because listen, it's all good publicity as long as people keep talking about you.
Yeah. There's no bad publicity.
Not really. Hope you boys
are Kardashians, for Christ's sake.
Well, this is another example of why you and I are such a good team, because yesterday on Sunday, I was talking to a friend of mine about the Kardashians. Do you remember that show with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie? And it was called
Who Cares? Yeah, I remember.
But you remember that show. All right. So that was
Unfortunately, I do.
That was the first show that we could recall that people who were just famous became famous for just being people, like no talents or skills. They couldn't sing, couldn't dance, couldn't act, didn't write, didn't play sports, didn't invent anything, weren't helpers of the cause of humanity in any way, shape, or form. They were just rich people's children. And because of that, we became, as a nation, I'm not saying you and I specifically, we became enamored with these people for doing what? Nothing. Like actually doing nothing. And the reason that I bring that all back around is because when we talk about bad publicity now, 50, 60, 70 years ago, if you would have told somebody that they were famous for nothing but being famous, that would have been an insult. Like they would have actually taken umbrage to that and said, oh, no, come on. I've helped out animals in East Rwanda. I've done a lot of stuff. I've built things down in Cabo with Todd Vercruyze on the Booze Coos. I was down there on a mission, an actual church mission. But now if you're just famous for being famous, it's considered like the best way to be famous. It's weird how that's happened.
My buddy used to be a manager at the Spearmint Rhino in beautiful Las Vegas, which is, of course, a strip club.
Yes, it
And
is.
he recalled Paris Hilton coming in at one time, and he told me, and this is a quote, "She looks like a human locust." So, and that's obviously his opinion. But I can kind of see what he's saying because she's kind of, kind of got that. Never a big fan. Never a big fan.
The Carl's Jr. / Hardee's commercial, for those that are here in the Midwest, Carl's Jr. is out there and Hardee's is out here. But that Carl's Jr. / Hardee's commercial she did was actually pretty hot. Like, I will give her credit. Like that, if it doesn't get all over the place, it doesn't belong in your face. First of all, fantastic marketing. Like, whoever came up with that line is sitting on a fucking mint right now, because that's a great line. But that was a pretty hot commercial. I'm glad that Jen Bank is checking in this morning. Hi, Jen.
Yeah.
She's like, The Simple Life. Thank you. Such a dumb show, but confessing she watched it. I knew a lot of people that watched it. Hell, I watched some of it at the time because it was such a phenomenon, right? You like were propositioned for the first time ever again with famous people who were famous for no other reason but being famous, having their own television show. It's like,
well, it's similar to watching a homeless guy yell at the sky, which I see all the time here. You can't help but, like, if you're sitting at the intersection, you can't help but miss the light possibly because you're watching this guy just, having it out with the sky and just fighting the air. It's like that's interesting. You throw that on television and I'd watch that.
See, that reminds me of Grandpa Simpson. If you recall The Simpsons, they had an episode where there was a picture in the paper and it was old man yells at cloud, right? And it was Grandpa Simpson just holding up his fist and yelling at the cloud. And I've thought about that actually quite a bit. How many people just yell at things for no good reason. All right, we're going to change gears here a little bit because I don't want to just yell at you for no reason. I do want to get you into this morning's poll question. However, if you go to our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, if you're a member of our Facebook group page with Chad, we are now at 246 members of our Facebook group page. Thank you guys so much. We continue to build this thing every single day. Answer me this. Because yesterday we had Joe DeGuano, our Green and Gold insider, on the program, Chad, who said that he believes Matt Stafford has played his last down possibly in the NFL. All right. He's a lot younger than both Aaron Charles Rodgers and Tom Brady. Okay. Which of those three quarterbacks then, Tom Brady, who engineered his 44th comeback in the fourth quarter last night over the Saints 17-16, Aaron Rodgers, who did get a win over the Bears on Sunday, or Matt Stafford, who Joe DeGuano thinks is going to be done? Which of the three guys do you think retires first? I'll give you some early results, Chad. 46.2% say Brady, 38.5% say Rodgers, 15.4% say Stafford. That's on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney.
I'm going to say Stafford as well. I think the other two's egos are too big to give it up. They can't let it go. And it becomes sad at some point when an athlete it's like they're whoopee. They cannot give it up. They have to have it, and they have to feed the beast. And that's really what we're seeing with both of these guys. Tom Brady had an awesome opportunity to possibly have the best walk-off of a career of all time.
Agreed.
Winning the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, a different team, getting your seventh, being, crowned the GOAT without question. You could have walked off, and now you're in a 500 team struggling. That whole entire game yesterday, except for the fourth quarter, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He was throwing the ball at linebackers' heads. He was throwing it into the ground. He missed a wide open throw. He even got pissed at himself. And it reminded me of another GOAT or Hall of Famer in a different sport. His name is Ric Flair. Ric Flair, in his career, when he was in his 50s, would get his ass kicked the whole entire match. And he would sell it too, like he was just getting the shit kicked out of him. And then miraculously at the end, he would come out and win. Now, I'm not saying that the NFL is scripted, because of course it's not, and it's real. And we don't have
sarcasm.
We don't have Arrested Development in this country, and we're not all big children. It literally is real, and I understand that. But it does seem a little bit weird because, Aikman and Joe Buck were licking his balls the whole time, even though, even Aikman would say, when the team is struggling, no, the team isn't struggling. Tom Brady just hit the linebacker in the head. He missed that throw, and he missed the other throw, and he calls it the team. Any other quarterback would be that quarterback is struggling, and they maybe need to sit him. It just gets nauseating at some point.
Well, I don't disagree with to our soup. I cannot say that that's not a thing. However, I don't necessarily think it's as scripted as you do with Ric Flair in the WWE. But listen, it's like in every entertainment business, even if the actuality of the competition is real. Think about when Roger Goodell took a Michael Vick out of prison and brought him to Philadelphia. The Buffalo Bills were interested in acquiring Michael Vick. There were a number of teams that were interested in acquiring Michael Vick. Roger Goodell took him to Philadelphia with Andy Reid and said, here you go. Here's this quarterback. Get back to work, right? So there is a nature of let's set the stage and then let's see what happens from there. So I don't know if I can disagree with that in total. But what I saw from Tom Brady last night, and I told you before we started the show this morning, I didn't watch much of that second half. I turned it off after halftime because I was watching some other stuff. I had the Bucks and Magic game on, and I was watching some other NBA. By the way, Dallas and Phoenix, what a blowout by Dallas last night. The point being, I thought the same thing that you did. Brady looked old. He looked cooked. He looked bad. The interception that he threw, which is only his third of the season, again, don't let stats, fool you, because Brady has not been good this year. But that interception that he threw in the second quarter was as bad of an interception as I have ever seen him throw in his entire career. I mean, the guy was standing right there, and he threw it to the opposite team, which I understand what Aikman tried to say about the guy jumping the route. That's not what happened. He was standing right there, and Tom Brady threw it to him. So
bad throw.
I didn't see the second half where he really came back to life. Now, this morning, going back through the game and watching the replays, I understand that Tom Brady still does throw like a Vinny Testaverde tight spiral. It doesn't go like ducking like Peyton Manning's does. He still has a good tight spiral, and you can see him getting it done in certain cases, but this is something to take into consideration as well. Tom Brady this year has the lowest QBR on passes over 20 yards that he's had in 8 years. Since 2014, he has not been as inaccurate on passes over 20 yards as he is this season. Now, fortunately, the refs, I wouldn't say they bail him out, because I think that Mike Evans did get interfered with on that play in which Brady was going long, and you could see the defender sort of grabbing his shoulder pad. But the Buccaneers got into a position in the red zone to make it easier for Brady, and yes, he did it once again. I got to give credit to the Saints defense, though, because this is a defense that, while their offense isn't good, no Michael Thomas, the Saints defense is not bad at all. They've got good players. And Andy Dalton, it wasn't his fault that they lost that game last night. Like, Andy Dalton played a pretty clean game. If Taysom Hill catches that ball, if Ingram's able to get the first down, the Saints win. And there's just no way for Brady to come back. So, I can't go that far with you and say it's Ric Flair-esque, but I see what you're saying. And we were talking about this too. We got to source this out. Larry Johnson, who used to be a running back, great running back for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Larry Johnson, you mentioned to me, had said one time, and I don't know where he said this, so we got to find this out and source this, but he said that the NFL was at least partially scripted.
Yeah, he said it multiple times. He's outspoken with it. He has spoken against the Shield. There's others that have as well, and they get marginalized, and you never really hear from them again. That's on purpose. And you and I, we won't quote the source, but know people that are in the NFL, and that is something that is done. They have to protect the Shield. They can only go so far when they're talking about certain things. That's just the way it works. It's a multi-billion-dollar, company. Obviously, I think it's kind of naive to believe that there isn't some shenanigans going on there. A good example is you're down at the goal line, and then accidentally you have 12 men in the huddle. That could have been a touchdown. Otherwise, more than likely would have been a touchdown. And it wasn't. It ended up in even Peyton Manning. I was watching the Manning cast. He's like, 12 minutes. You can't do that. And he acted like it was all a big deal. He's selling it. I'm telling you, watch the WWE and understand how you sell things and all of that. And then watch how all of these guys, it just seems coordinated to me to a certain degree. Obviously, they're still great athletes. Obviously, I think that there's realism to it. It's just like wrestling. There's realism to it. But there is a certain part of it, in my opinion, that could very well be scripted, because there's a lot of money on the line here. There's a lot of money on the line that's exchanging hands every single day. And gambling is a huge part of that. As I've said before, when you look at the origin of the original 8 teams, all of them were started by mobsters.
Okay. Well, to that point, the Green Bay Packers.
That's the truth.
Listen, I don't know that you're wrong. And I can't say that in every single situation I would disagree with you 100%. But I will say this. The integrity of the game, the sport itself, is paramount if you're going to gamble on it. Like, because think about how controlled gambling is with state and federal regulatory agencies that oversee this. If the idea was that there was a predetermined outcome, a prefix, we would have a big problem, because the gambling institutions would absolutely, in my estimation, blow back and say, well, we can't take action on this because its integrity has been compromised. But I will go back to something that you're making me think of now, which I hadn't thought of in about 12 to 13 months. when the Raiders and the Steelers, right, were playing in week 17 or whatever it was, week 18, a couple of seasons ago, if they would have tied, both of those teams would have gone to the postseason and somebody else would have fallen off. I can't remember exactly who it was. And God damn it, there was nearly a tie before the Raiders won. And I watched that thing with great aplomb because I said the same thing that you're saying in essence right now. If this in fact does happen and you have a pre-coordinated narrative between two teams, even if it's 2 of the 32, then you wouldn't be able to take action on the sport anymore because that would give you the sense, at least if I were a bookmaker, an odds maker, if that happened, I would get the sense that I couldn't trust the accuracy of the results. It means you're coming for my money, which then I couldn't have because that is going to endanger my job, my company, my employees, etc. So while I don't think it's all the way there, I think it's kind of like, I think it's kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like Larry David and Jeff Green didn't set up with exact dialogue, Curb Your Enthusiasm, but they gave you the parameters of the scene, right? Yeah. So here's the parameters of the scene. Yep. This is what we want to see Larry do. This is what we want to see Jeff do. This is what we want to see Cheryl do.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, and this is where I think the athletes in the NFL wouldn't play along with this. First of all, there's too many people to really get a coordinated conspiracy in there. There's too many coaches and players. But if you do set the stage in a certain way and then just let all of the chips fall where they may, could you consider that a bit of preordaining? Sure, I guess you could consider that, even though I don't think the players are out there like Brady is not looking to lose for 3 quarters to win it in the 4th quarter. Like that's not something he's looking to do. But if you set the stage in the right way, and that's what happens.
It just appeared that way. It just appeared that way. And then now we hear this. This is the part that's nauseating. The greatest of all time. Did you see Tom Brady last night? Oh my God. And then they're comparing, like, you've got to take 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks and put their totals together for touchdowns to equal what Tom Brady's done. Okay. Yeah. He's pretty much played in the era where you don't touch quarterbacks. Okay. Throw his ass in the 90s or 80s. He wouldn't last as long as he did. That's why no quarterback has ever really lasted as long as he did. I'm not taking away from the fact the guy's great. And I'm not denying the fact that he's the greatest of all time. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It's just how much they play it up. The guy played like shit for 3 quarters.
Yes.
And no one will say it. The only guy that said it was at halftime was Booger McFarland, which God bless, hats off to Booger McFarland because he actually did pretty much call Tom Brady out. Like, this guy's playing like garbage. I'm like, finally, somebody on TV is willing to, possibly besmirch the great, powerful Oz of Tom Brady. It just gets old. He's on a shit team. He's playing like shit. He should have retired. And that's just a fact. It's a fact. One thing I will give Tom Brady, though, is he does own it. He does own it. He does. Say, hey, we've been playing like crap, and I take full responsibility. So I give him that. I will give him that. He is a great leader. You cannot deny that part of it. And he did. I watched the film, too, because I turned it off just like you did. Those throws at the end, again, it's just like you were throwing it into the ground. You were throwing it at dudes' heads, and all of a sudden now it's just like darts. I mean, it's truly remarkable. I scratch my head.
Well, let me just go ahead and say it is a little ironic that it would be Booger to be the one to pick on Tom Brady. That does seem a little bit ironic in and of itself. But we watched the same thing as Packer fans on Sunday with Aaron Charles Rodgers, the anointed greatest quarterback of all time that ever lived and walked, and basically is, currently right now, probably ascending into some celestial kingdom. We saw the same thing. Dude was terrible. I mean, he was absolutely terrible. But in the 4th quarter versus the Bears, he came to play, and he put that team on his back and, rode it to victory against the Chicago Bears. So I don't think that it's, again, I don't think it's as scripted as you think, but I'm not willing to go 100% of the way and say that there is no finagling. There's no coordination. Maybe if it's by somebody outside of a team structure, I don't know, but I wouldn't go as far as to say, oh no, Chad, you're completely wrong. There's never been any sort of heavy thumb on a certain button or whatever. There's a lot of things that could be considered. I don't know about tampering, but you could make some sort of a consideration with what you're talking about.
So the conclusion you'd have to come to about the Larry Johnson thing is that either A, there's something there where there's smoke, there's fire, or B, and this is how they paint it, right? This is how they marginalize you. He's crazy. Well, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. He's crazy. We're talking about a guy that he dominated the league for a while. I mean, this isn't just some scrub. Larry Johnson
fantastic.
For a while
Larry
dominated the league.
Yeah.
So is he just making it up? And why would you do that? I mean, the NFL, if you're going to pick on somebody, that's not who you want to pick on.
Not
I mean,
really.
that's
Not
the
really.
elephant in the room. That's the gorilla in the room. You do not want to F with the NFL and expect to ever have any kind of career moving forward, especially in sports, in any sport. You'll just get canceled. It's over with. And for the most part, Larry Johnson just pretty much exists on conspiracy sites and things of that nature from what I've seen. So why would you do that to yourself unless there's something there or you're crazy, which who knows? Maybe he is crazy.
Well, I was going to say we can't completely discount the fact that he might have a severe case of CTE because Larry Johnson was playing in an era
That
of
doesn't exist, though. Remember, all of a sudden, that didn't exist, and then all of a sudden they proved it, and now look what they've done.
Well,
For a
okay.
while, that doesn't exist. That's all conspiracy. There's no such thing as CTE, and
Okay,
then they
fair
proved
enough.
it.
All right, fair enough. That ESPN, by the way, you want to talk about a coordinated effort for fucking numbskullery. That was an ESPN job to bury the lead. ESPN had buried that lead so deep and so dark. It is a little unfortunate. Chad, let me change gears back to our poll question. We're getting a lot of different folks reaching out this morning because I asked which of these three quarterbacks retires first, Brady, Rodgers, or Stafford. We really should have put, and if you're a member of our group page on the Sports Carnival on Facebook, you can add this option. We really should have put, I just didn't think about it because he seems like he's already done anyways, Matt Ryan, Matty Ice.
Russell Wilson, maybe?
No, he's, again, too much guaranteed money. And Russell Wilson's ego is larger than his IQ. I think that is what I'm starting to find out. And he ain't giving that shit up very soon. He feels
Matt
like
Ryan might be, he might lead that list, actually.
Well, and that's where I will say that was a miss on my part because Matt Ryan, watching him on Sunday versus Dallas, which again, we're going to go through this. Listen, but we'll go through this narrative with Dallas too. Like, oh my God, what a great team. They barely beat the Colts. Where Matt Ryan threw, I think, 3 interceptions, was turned over a number of times. All right, so Matt Ryan maybe goes out first, and I think that's probably about right, guys. I really do. I think Matt Ryan, when you compare him to Brady and to Stafford and to Rodgers, probably goes out first. I don't know what the structure of Stafford's contract is. I don't really understand why he would leave unless Aaron Donald also decides to leave, because Aaron Donald almost retired at the end of that season last year, but I don't understand why Stafford would necessarily leave. Rodgers is owed $60 million. He's not going anywhere next year. At least I don't think so. Tom Brady, this is a big TBD because Tom Brady right now is a completely changed man from even where he was, Chad, at the beginning of the season, at least perceptionally to the general public. Tom Brady came into the season still married to one of the world's richest and most beautiful women, Gisele Bündchen. That will not be the case next season. So where would Tom Brady be a potential fit? And this is where we go back to a conversation we had last week. There's probably only 2 places that he would be able to fit, Las Vegas or San Francisco. If you look at what the Raiders are doing now, and Derek Carr and company are starting to pick it up.
And he's the California guy.
And Vegas is no state income taxes. You're playing indoors, right? You're playing in the AFC West, which means you get Kansas City, you get Denver, you get the Chargers. You get some fair weather climate type places. He goes back to the AFC once again. Or you take on San Francisco, which is a team that, if they improve like their offensive line just a little bit, is probably the most complete team in the NFL. If they had a quarterback like Brady that could make the throws when they needed to. But other than that, I could see Brady walking away too, because now you're in a completely different space in your life.
Yeah.
What are you going to be doing with those children of yours? How important is that family time to you? And because you don't have your wife with you in tow, this might change everything quite dramatically. But I'm grateful, though, that P1 Breacher, P1 Foreman, and others have brought up the name Matt Ryan, because that really and truly is the more correct answer, I think. Matt Ryan looks like he is just done for. When we come back here on the Sports Carnival, our regular Tuesday guest, Matt Janus, UWL football coach, is going to be joining us here. I want to talk about Joey Stutzman and where he is at in the running for the Gallardi Trophy, which is the trophy for the best player in all of Division III football. Chad, there have also been a couple of Eagles named to the all-conference academic team, which is something we want to mention as well. Stick around. Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios back in about 60 seconds.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. I must admit, I have an inferiority complex, but it's not a very good one. Now here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Oh, welcome back. So glad to have you guys and gals around this morning. Shout out to Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, a proud UWL alumni, our friends at the Recovery Room, the powering source behind the Trauma Center studios, Preferred Insurance, Brian Sandmeyer, Tony Rausa, and of course the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia, Todd Vercruzzi. Guys, thanks so much for all of your support. Matt Janus joining the program here. Chad, like he's been accustomed to doing on a Tuesday for many years. Coach, how's it going? How's the recruiting? How's your life been after a couple of weeks off from football now?
What's shaking, you guys? It's been good. You know, like we talked about. I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. Like you kind of just hop into the next season, right? So like you replace the game day competition with competing for players, right? And so you're recruiting against Division II schools, other schools in our league, and so like it's in a sense it kind of becomes like this new competition and this new. That's your new drive really for the next 2 months here. So it's been going good. Already put together a really good class. Our coaches did such a phenomenal job of during the season of getting this thing laid out here. And you already had a big string over the weekend of some big time difference makers. And now we're really spending every day until Christmas here in La Crosse and doing our official visits. So we're bringing about 2 kids onto campus here a day, and that's all we do. We try to make our visits really, really meaningful. So we show them not only everything about our university. We show them all the stuff about our football program, but we spend time on Granddad's Bluff. We spend time downtown, and so we make sure to show them the whole city, because that's what you're getting when you come here, right? You're not just gonna, and nor do I want our guys to just sit in their dorm room and that's all they do. You have the entire city of La Crosse at your disposal. So of course we're gonna spend a ton of time in our city as they go through these official visits.
Did you jump into the transfer portal by chance and maybe redirect Graham Mertz your way, or is that?
Chad, I'll be honest, I did follow him. So that's what I did. I didn't get it. But yeah, obviously, with the portal, it's obviously it's almost in a sense overwhelming with how many guys are in there. You're kind of just in disbelief at times of players that are looking for the new home, looking for new opportunities. And so obviously we try to stay on top of that as best as we can and try to bring in the right players. And we have over the last 7 years, we brought in guys that were, for whatever reasons, weren't happy at upper level schools, weren't happy, and they were able to come here and have an immediate impact for us. But also they got, I think, I look at some of our senior class and guys that have transferred, and you see the experience pay off for them, right? Like you see, okay, I love playing football there. I love going to school there. I love living in the city of La Crosse. And so I think that, as a coach, at times when you take a kid that didn't have that type of experience and you bring him to your place and you watch him graduate, how much fun, I think of Jack Anderson on our team, one of our defensive linemen who got that experience over the last 3 years here.
Coach, it seems like there is a similar recruiting pattern no matter what company it is, football, if it's a business. When it comes to La Crosse, you take somebody to Granddad Bluff, you bring them downtown La Crosse. I had lunch at the Old Crow, went up to the Granddad Bluff, saw the entirety of the Cooley region, then spent some time at what was formerly the Arterial and now Fork and Fable down on 16th and Jackson. And really and truly, Chad, to Matt's point, that's the seller. It's not just the company, the business, say the football team. It's the city of La Crosse. We're so lucky to be here. And that's something that I think Graham Mertz would really benefit from, right? He gets to stay in the UW system. He gets to play with some exceptional wide receivers and have, great coaching behind him. And look, Graham Mertz isn't without his skills and talents, but he's wildly inaccurate. And I think that he needs a couple of years under his belt at the University of Wisconsin lacrosse. Let me ask you, if you did land Graham Mertz, which we're probably not going to see, but if you did, would the Eagles be favored by like 2 touchdowns in every single game for the entire
season? I have no idea. I just know I'm excited about our quarterback room here, and Kaiser's getting healthy now, and excited to see what's going to continue to happen in that room under Coach McGuire.
It's interesting because Coach Janus last night, Chad and I, we were watching the Monday Night Football game, and the Saints and the Bucs didn't give us an explosive game until the fourth quarter, but it did give us a look at Taysom Hill once again, who was actually playing a lot of wide receiver last night, did some quarterback play, and he's always on their special teams. Compare Taysom Hill and Kaiser Hildebrand, because when I look at these two guys, there are some similarities, right? Kaiser's throwing motion keeps getting better and better. He had some games this year where he was really putting the ball on a string. But he's a tall, athletic runner. And I think Kaiser finished number 3 in the WIAC this year in total rushing yards. And if not, he was right in that range. Do you see any comparisons between those two players?
That's a good point. Somebody's never brought that up, but yeah, I think there is. Obviously Kaiser was a first team all-purpose selection within our conference, so he certainly does some of that stuff. And his speed. I mean, some of the runs he broke. I'm thinking like specifically at like UW Stout. And he has what Hill has too, is he's tough. Like Kaiser doesn't. It drives us nuts. It drives us absolutely nuts because he doesn't slide. He is going to put his head down. He is going to move. I take that back. He slid once when he got the first down at Wayne State, and he knew the game was over.
Okay,
that's the only time I think I've seen him slide. So he's got that kind of toughness as well. And just like Hill, like I think I've told you this before, Dave. Like he would play if he wasn't playing quarterback. I'm pretty sure he could start at about 4 other positions on our team.
Sure.
We had him back, and we've done some. We were trying to get him ready to do some kick returns, some punt returns. I think he could play safety. I think he could play corner. I think he could play Sam linebacker on the defense side of the ball. I think he could play running back. I think he could play receiver. So you talk about that kind of player like how Hill is. He's kind of like that Swiss Army knife where with him there's not really a position at times with it for him, at times, and they do a good job trying to figure that one out. And where I think Kaiser's more of a true quarterback, he has that arm strength. But I mean, I would love to play Kaiser on every single special teams unit if we could, and we did at times, and we had him as like kind of a backup on some of that. And it was, hey, we got to kind of limit him because he's taken, he's going to run the ball 20 times today. He's going to throw the ball 15, so we can't just play him on every. We got to protect him a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's got to be one of those real hard choices for a coach. You're like, wow, I could use him everywhere, but I've got to limit his use in certain aspects so we make sure that he's still upright when he needs to be a quarterback or whatever it is. Jeremy P12 Foreman, I have to bring this up, says we should have any big-time guys come run a FedEx route with him and then meet me at the recovery room for lunch. Guaranteed they will pick UWL. I don't know that I can really argue with that one, Foreman, because we are really cool and we would bring people in. But UWL's Thomas checked in with me earlier this week, and maybe it was even last week, Coach, but he said that you brought in a recruit and they were inside, maybe it was a student union area, and just the explosion of energy and the way that you brought this guy in. He didn't tell me who it was, but the way that you brought this guy in, just the whole pomp and circumstance that surrounds how it is that you're inviting these recruits to campus seems to be, one of these things that at least is tickling the fancy of the students and the student body of UWL. Did you have to come up with a specific way that you would bring recruits on? Is this something you've just learned through the years? Did you and Mike used to have a playbook like, here's how we're going to get this guy to just love us and fall all over us?
Yeah, I think with like a lot of times, like Mike kind of set the blueprint on how you should do a visit or how we can kind of change it. Or, the biggest thing Mike showed me was really how to use this place, right? And I came from a place that didn't have that, right? It didn't have this type of city, and so for me, it was always, well, you just spend time in a football locker room and you just sit in the foot, and that's all you do, right? And so he was able to kind of initiate the blueprint of. Here's how you can structure this around the city. Here's how you can structure some of the visits. And then, over the years with the staff that we currently have now is we've just kind of continuously pieced it together. And we've, the good thing we've done is we've constantly changed it. Like this last 2 weeks, we've changed our whole structure, and it's been awesome. It's been for the good, right? And that was just from learning and trying to, okay, this went really well here. Kids really wanted to see this. They didn't like doing this so much. Like they didn't care to see this part so much. So we kept adding to it and just trying to put those little things in. And like I said, to make that visit meaningful. They're not a number here. We're recruiting guys for a specific reason to play a specific spot. And so I think we've done such a good job with that and expressing that to individuals.
We got a huge question that we put up earlier. This is big. And just take the time to answer this. Are you going to bring back the man bun in the offseason? This is a lot of people want to know. You're thinking about it. I think it's going to happen.
It's going to be a big no, I think. So, like when I started at Chad, it was it was COVID. So like we were at home, and you know how that was. No, you didn't really care how you dressed. You didn't see anybody all day long.
Right.
So
you could go to the barber.
You wore sweatpants and maybe you didn't shower for 2 days. I don't know. So I started growing it then, So it's a pretty big, ugly stage you kind of got to get through, or you kind of almost bring back that middle school bowl cut a little bit, kind of grow that out a little bit.
Yeah, baby.
Hopefully not. I don't think so. Like I said, it was just a lot to it, but I don't know. I'm going to say no. If you were betting, I'd say no.
It's popular though. It is popular. People did love it. You got to give it that.
I know.
It's crazy because for as many people didn't love it at first, and I remember, Matt, when you were growing it out, we ended up putting up a poll question that got nearly 300-400 votes about should he continue to grow his hair or not, and it was 75-25 for yes, you have to keep going. Before we let you go this morning, though, Coach, I want to talk about Joey Stutzman here for a moment because I mentioned his name before we brought you on, and I know that there's still a couple of maybe weeks or maybe even, I'm not sure exactly how long there is left until the Gallardi Trophy is announced. But Joey was one of 15 finalists for the Gallardi Trophy, which Chad is awarded. It's like the Heisman Trophy for Division III football. Where do you think his chances lie in this one, Coach?
Well, I'm hoping he's a finalist. I think we should find out here in the next week. Obviously, it turned over to fan voting. I know you couldn't see it. Well, like when you were voting, you weren't able to see like how many a certain guy has. So I'm hoping Eagle Nation gave him a lot of votes. And obviously, really the whole country in terms of people that follow Division III football. Well-deserving without a doubt, and not just from what he does on the field, but what he does off the field, and how influential and how much of a big part of this football program that he's been, not just for this year, but throughout his whole career.
Yeah, no doubt. And, just for those that are uninitiated too, the Eagles under Matt Janus and Mike Schmidt now have 3 Gallardi finalists in the last 6 years. That's 3 in the last 6 years, meaning you're putting together a hell of a roster. Coach, we're going to let you off the hook here this morning. I appreciate your time as always, joining the program. Chad, Matt Janus did help us out with Kent Dernbach, who we'll have on the show on Friday. We'll be talking to Dernbach from this exciting Eagles basketball team, which I do not think has lost a game yet. The Eagles are still undefeated, and they are just kicking the crap out of their opponents. So we're really excited to talk to Coach Dernbach on Friday, and thanks for the hookup. As always, great to see you, man, and go Eagles.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You guys will have a blast with Coach Dernbach. I'll talk to you later. Go Eagles.
Go Eagles. The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest mortgage team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest mortgage team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest mortgage team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
At the Little Doobie's Pizza, we kill 2 stone birds with 1 rock every time with our hand-rolled Doobie Deluxe for only $49.95. That's a street value of over $75.
No way!
The Doobie Deluxe is a hand-rolled 18-inch pizza that will blow your bone-resined mind.
Whoa!
Topped with a sausage, black olives, extra cheese, and about a half ounce of the finest kush at east side of San Bernardino.
Dude, give me another slice.
Because at Little Doobie's Pizza, we put a little TLC in our THC.
And right now, for a limited time only, get an order of crazy cannabis bread for only $10 with an order of a Doobie Deluxe at the street value of over $22.50.
You know what we say at the Little Doobie's Pizza? Why get stoned then eat when you can do both at the same time?
Doobies.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios, this is the Sports Carnival. Remember, the only B word to ever call a woman is beautiful. Because bitches love it when you call them beautiful. Now, here's your host, Dave Carney.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Welcome back to the Sports Carnival. I'm Davies Chad. Sending a shout out to Sean O'Neill, the O'Neill Law Firm, Chad, the official law firm of the Sports Carnival, family, bankruptcy, criminal needs. My buddy Sean O'Neill, who has helped me out, Chad, with a couple of different legal situations, is the official attorney of the Sports Carnival, and our good buddy Joe Sampson, Helping Hands Landscaping. I know that we're going to get to that snow at some point, even though this week, Chad, it's looking like it's going to be pretty nice. High 30s, low 40s. We'll be getting to that snow at some point, and that's when you need to call Joe if you're in La Crosse or on Alaska for snow removal. During the spring and summer months, your lawn care can be done by Joe at Helping Hands Landscaping, and if you've got big dog problems, call Joe. He'll help you clean up some of that mess. Jeremy P12 Foreman checking in here, Chad. I'm glad you brought this up because Foreman's like, this sounds like we went back to the whole idea of COVID, right? Sweatpants, not showering. He says, it sounds like my normal days now. Sweatpants, showering twice a week, not caring what others think. He says he won't cut his hair until Matt Janus grows a man bun again. Okay.
Good luck with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that
We'll
sounded
see what
like
happens
my
first.
Thanksgiving weekend. Sweatpants, not showering, eating too much. Yeah,
Dude.
good living right there.
Yeah, it's great. I didn't wear anything but sweatpants for 3 consecutive winters out here in Wisconsin because I wasn't getting up at 2:45 in the fucking morning to then put on jeans, right? Like that just wasn't going to be a thing.
No.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't care less about doing it. And I remember the first couple of times I did this, a good friend of mine looked at me like I was some sort of, I don't know what I could say exactly, like some sort of affront on his actual senses as a human being, because how dare I come in clad in sweatpants? Well, we're up at 2:45 in the morning. What are we dressing up for? Like nobody's going to see us until at least 9. And at that point, maybe we can go get a different pair of pants on. So I'm with you guys. Sweatpants, not bad. Sweatpants, not bad.
Well, I did find this new pair of jeans. They're called stretchy jeans. Okay, but they just look like normal jeans.
I've seen these.
Got an elastic waistband. Oh my God. It is fat guy friendly if I've ever seen it. It is so nice because the bad thing about jeans is when you wash them, they usually shrink a little bit.
Yes.
And if you've, pounded too much food over the weekend, God, it makes you feel all fat and bloated and nobody wants to go to work and you just want to stay home and cry and listen to, Air
Joni Mitchell records.
Yeah, it's not good. So big fan of the stretchy jeans. It's like wearing sweatpants, but not really.
See, I got to go 100% opposite of this one. Actually, 180 degrees. I can't find a pair of jeans that don't have the elastic, stretchy waistband. Like I cannot find you. I have to go to a specific Levi's store to find the one section of jeans that isn't stretchable. I get it. I see what you're saying, but I'm at that point in my life too, where I'm like, damn it, these things need to shrink up. I have to dry my jeans like every 2 days just to make sure that they still fit the same way they did when I bought them. Otherwise, I feel like I'm swimming in sweatpants. And Thomas, you're right. We've got Coach Dernbach coming up on Friday. He says, let's go. I cannot wait. Chad, let me ask you to do us a little favor. Pull up that Bucs slide from last night, because last night the Milwaukee Bucks guys and gals played against the Orlando Magic down in Orlando. Janus, I know we talk about him a lot because he's just so great, but Janus Antetokounmpo is just so fucking great. Chad, last night, 34-13. 12 of 21 from the field, even was from outside, added 5 assists as well. And for the 7th consecutive game, Janus has scored more than 30 points. Janus is one of those guys that right now, and I know we've talked about the Shaq comparison and all that, which makes a lot of sense. He's one of those guys that absolutely is unstoppable in almost every single way, shape, or form. He is nearly unguardable at every single position. And watching the way that this guy maneuvers the offense is just really something to see. Now, last night, Chad, Brook Lopez didn't play the first game of the season. He missed his first game of the season. You could tell because Orlando was taking it to the rack. I realized that Brook only averages 6 boards a game, which I'm not a huge fan of, but he leads the NBA with 3 block shots per game. So the immense amount of impact that he has on the defensive end of the court, Chad, and you brought this up a lot, is really glaring when you don't have Brook Lopez on the court. And it makes me think about what the Bucks were really trying to do last year and why they didn't end up getting a chance to repeat as champions. Brook Lopez was out for 80% of the season with that back surgery. When he came back, he was not nearly where he is right now this year. So with that said, you could tell how impactful he was for the Bucs. But last night, again, the Bucs beat the Magic, which they should have done. But the impact that Brook Lopez has, I thought, was felt for the entire game, because Orlando's a team that Milwaukee should be able to blow out. They were 9.5-point favorites in this game before the game tipped off. I didn't make a play on the Bucs to cover the spread, even though head-to-head in the matchup, the Bucs had covered 7 of the last 9 matchups against Orlando. I took a play on this under last night because the total was sitting at 225.5. While I didn't know that Brook Lopez being out was going to dramatically impact how close the game was, I did think that both Orlando and the Bucs would have a little bit of an issue scoring just by virtue of some of their last outings. This Bucs team, though, again, playing behind Boston right now, and there's a couple other squads that are in the mix. This Bucs team right now looks to be one of the favorites for the NBA championship. Middleton had a not great game, but he started off great against the Lakers, didn't play against the Charlotte Hornets. So this was only Middleton's second game of the season. But once these guys all get together, and then you get Joe Ingles to come to the fold, I just don't know I'm just not sure that Boston's even deep enough to beat this team if everybody's healthy. I'm just not sure.
I think it'll be a good matchup. Rick Hamilton saying that happy birthday, Janus. Is his birthday today?
I guess if Rick says it is. I don't follow people's birthdays, but
Larry Bird's birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, well, he's in good company.
December 7th, Larry Bird is Larry Bird's birthday.
Wow.
Well, if it is Giannis's birthday, happy birthday to Giannis. And Giannis is having a great season, and he's dominating. And I think, the funny thing is the storyline here, right, with MVPs, it's really between him and Tatum right now. Obviously, it's really early, and a lot of things can happen. But those are the two names that come up. Luka, I've seen Steph now is making the rounds on the list as well, which I don't think
Not
that will
13
happen.
and 11. They lost
Yeah,
the Pacers last night.
Garbage right now, but I think that's going to be an interesting matchup, and hopefully it ends up in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we see an amazing Eastern Conference Finals. And I think that whoever wins that is probably going to win the championship.
I totally agree.
Now, as things are right now today.
Yes, as things stand right now today, I would tend to agree with you on that, because a lot of the teams out west that we thought were going to be powerhouses again this year aren't really living up to that billing.
No.
Golden State's down quite dramatically. Like I mentioned, they lost to the Pacers last night. Really good game, but they still end up losing, and that was a home game for the Warriors. The West is going to be, there's always something to say about the West, and there's a lot of great players, but I look at this Milwaukee-Boston era right now a lot like I would have looked at it in the 1980s. Except for now you've got the Bucks that have already won a championship as opposed to the Celtics. I think that if Boston and Milwaukee play in the conference finals, that is one of the more epic 7-game series we will have seen in the last 25 years, because Jason Tatum is sterling. But Jaylen Brown, we cannot discount what Jaylen Brown's done for Boston either. The other night, Jason Tatum had 29, Brown had 36. You've got Al Horford, who's a savvy veteran, and then Malcolm Brogdon, who Bucks fans know well, is one, if not one of the only second-round draft picks in the history of the league to win Rookie of the Year. If Brogdon stays healthy for the entire season, which has really been his Achilles heel, pun totally intended there. If Brogdon stays healthy for the entire season, Boston's going to be a tough out. They really will. They will be a tough out. I know you don't like Grant Big Baby Williams because he whines too much.
No, I think he's a good player. I just think he's a whiner.
Yes, I do too. Breacher's asking if I saw the footage of Curry sinking 5 full court shots. Yes, I did.
Yeah. Amazing.
Dude, I thought that was some sort of camera trick at first, but then he keeps on chucking it. And I was like, wow, this guy is fantastic. Well, he really is.
Golden State's problem isn't offense. It isn't being able to shoot the ball. It's defense. And I think Gary Payton Jr., I know that seems kind of ridiculous that one player can make a difference, but I think that the tenacity and that grit and some of that, and obviously Draymond Green's not quite where he used to be. I think that's really where they're suffering, is their defense, not really their offense.
Well, at the beginning of the season, we thought that Jonathan Kuminga, that James Wiseman would be having great seasons, stand-up seasons. Wiseman's essentially been put on the shelf now. He might not actually be a fit with that Golden State team at all. They might have to move. Possibly, because he's still only, 19, 20 years old. So he's a very young player, but he doesn't fit in with those guys at all. He really doesn't. It doesn't seem like that anyways. So, Golden State, I'm not necessarily concerned about. I think that you're right. To go back to your point about if Boston and Milwaukee play in the Eastern Conference Finals,
it'll be great if that happens.
It would be fantastic. That team goes on to win the NBA championship. And Rick Hamilton does answer our question. Everybody's been chiming in. They've Googled this. Giannis's 28th birthday. Rick, thank you very much for your
Think about that.
contributions.
28 is generally the prime
The
in
beginning.
the NBA. 28 to
Yes.
32 is generally where
Generally.
you're going to get the most production out of a player. And obviously that varies. It's not always exactly that. But historically, if you look at players' peaks between the ages of 28 and 32 or 34, something around that, obviously I think it's probably that window's growing a little bit. So think about where Janus is and the type of attitude that he has, right? He thinks that he's a role player. He acts like a role player. He practices like a role player, and he's the most dominating force in the NBA, or one of the most dominating forces in the NBA. I mean, where he could go, barring injury, he is going to be in that conversation. I think he's already in probably the top 15 if you're being reasonable. I think that he'll be in the top 5 in a matter of time if he continues on this trajectory. I don't think there's any doubt.
There is no doubt. And it's funny because you've mentioned, like, you know, his work ethic and the fact that he goes to practice like he's a role player. One of the guys that I've always compared Janus to, that he recently admitted that he compares himself to, or at least looks up to, is Kobe Bryant, like a singular myopic focus to practicing. And then I look at Janus's body, being that he's 7 foot, 250 pounds. Yeah. If Shaq would have had the same practice habits as Kobe did, they never would have broken up. Like, the reason that Kobe didn't want to play with Shaq anymore is Shaq just kept taking all the summers off, and he would come in so fat and out of shape. Yeah, he could dominate, but he didn't have the same mentality as Janus did. I think about this with Charles Barkley a lot too. If he would have had Karl Malone's body, physique, work ethic, Charles Barkley would have absolutely won an NBA championship at some point in his career. This is where I still give so much credit to guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to guys that have played for 20 seasons through all eras and were able to do it because they kept themselves in such great shape. If Janus does that, watch out. We're talking a top 3, top 4 player of all time, top 5 for sure, but he could be in the conversation for the best player to ever play the game.
If Shaq would have had the same mentality as Kobe, there wouldn't be any question. He would have been, no question,
Shaq would have gone down as the best player in the history of the league. If Shaq would have had Kobe's mentality,
they would have had to change more rules. I mean, they had to change rules for this guy because it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. I mean, he's like, you know, he's like one of us playing against 2-year-olds. It's not fair.
Well, that's
listen, pushing dudes around and just dunking, ripping backboards down. I mean, it wasn't that. I mean, when you really go back, I don't know if you've seen I think it's a documentary or whatever, the movie, whatever it is on HBO about Shaq. It's really fun to watch. It's fun to watch, and that window with him and Penny was a lot shorter than I remember. I thought it was longer than that.
No, it was 2 seasons, 3 seasons.
It's because it was so amazing is why I recall it as being longer. That was a great combo too. And Penny, man, doesn't get enough credit for how great he was either.
Well, no, if Hardaway doesn't get injured so severely in his career, he's like Grant Hill, one of those guys that if they didn't get so severely injured, we're talking about all-time greats. Chad, the magic with Shaq, and listen, we'll just go ahead and compare Shaq to Janus one more time. Shaq was just so powerful, so dominant. You mentioned the rule changes. They made a zone defense for Shaq. They allowed people to foul the hell out of him for no reason other than he was too big. But Shaq was one of those guys, a lot like Janus, who at 7 feet large could run up and down the court, could fire a pass. Shaq was a great passer. And from what I've understood too, Shaq could actually shoot quite decently from outside. But in those days, they just didn't let him do that, right? Like, so Shaq could have hit a 3 or 2. They just didn't let him do that. When it comes to winning, though, which Shaq didn't win with Penny, he lost to Hakeem Olajuwon. When it comes to winning, I'm glad you put this up. We did win last night on the Milwaukee Bucks and the Orlando Magic. We took the under 225.5. The final score, 109 to 102, comes in significantly under the 222.5. If you go to betus.com.pa, use the referral code Carnival, you get yourself a special sign-up bonus, and that's where tonight, Chad, I'm going to ask our listeners and our audience members to go and make a play with me on the Los Angeles Lakers. I know that this seems crazy because I'm like, hey, fade the Lakers until they give us a reason not to. Well, they've given us a reason not to now. And the Los Angeles Lakers versus Cleveland tonight in Cleveland, LeBron James coming back to Cleveland. The Lakers are 4-point dogs. Over the last 4 games, the Lakers on the road are 4-0 against the spread. In the last 7 games, the Lakers are 6-1 against the spread following a straight-up win of 10 points or more, which they just got, and they're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. Cleveland started off this season on a really nice, hot start. They've sort of taken a step back. I know I said we'd fade the Lakers all year, but they have given us reasons not to. So play the Lakers +4 tonight. Go to betus.com.pa and use the referral code Carnival when you sign up so we get credit. Have a great day, guys and gals. This has been a fun show. Chad, you've been awesome as always. And it turns out Tom Brady's our #1 vote getter for who retires first.
Huh. Would not have seen that coming.
Yeah.
I would have thought Matt Ryan might have taken that over. I guess not.
He's getting some votes.
All right, we're out.
See.